Good morning on this Sunday, August 31st, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. A big shakeup at the CDC has members of the medical community sounding the alarm. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones scores a legal victory over Attorney General Chris Carr, and the courts weigh in on the Fulton County Commissioner's refusal to seat two GOP nominees to the Elections Board. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Brian are here. I'm in for Lori Geary today. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
For the second time this year, the CDC has a new director. President Donald Trump ousted his original pick after just months on the job. Reaction is pouring in from around the country and the medical community. Well, some doctors say they are concerned about the agency's future. Former CDC Director Susan Menarez was fired on Wednesday. The White House then appointed the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Jim O'Neill, to lead the CDC. O'Neill takes over the agency during a significant period of change and disagreement between the CDC and the White House over vaccine policy. Now, Menarez's firing prompted several high-ranking officials to resign in protest. On Thursday, hundreds showed up at the CDC headquarters in Decatur to stand in solidarity with them. And those former CDC leaders warned that recent policy shifts could undermine public health guidance. Now, Melita Menarez was removed after less than a month in the role.
Yes, and she had to be fired because she was a congressional appointee. Kennedy couldn't just go in and fire her himself. It had to be a presidential firing. And Kennedy has been threatening a lot of people in the CDC who do not agree with his reliance or his aversion to vaccines. He's been telling people resign or be fired. So the three of the top people who resigned and who were celebrated yesterday on Thursday afternoon, the D3 as they're lovingly called, had dire warnings about what happens when the CDC is used, and I'm quoting from a letter by Dimitri Dukakis, an environment that treats the CDC as a tool to generate policies and materials that do not rely upon scientific reality and are designed to hurt rather than improve the public's health. So that is the argument. And you know, people in the medical profession have ethical standards that are very high for their profession. And so ordering them to do politics instead of science is a deep concern for our overall public health in the future.
And those concerns are that the HHS secretary is pushing reckless policies, Phil.
Well, the CDC was in disarray way before President Trump got inaugurated. Let's put it this way. First you mask, no you don't mask. Oh, social distance, oh no, that's wrong. Oh, you got to, fire people with vaccines, et cetera, et cetera. So Trump is trying to fix this. And my only criticism of the Trump administration is fire the person who vetted whoever this was. She won by a tie vote in the Senate, the CDC director that was fired, and Kamala Harris broke the ties. So you have to be political in these things when you put people in. So yeah, people say, oh, don't be political. Well, yeah, now there are concerns, rightly so, by everybody. I don't care your politics, the future of the CDC. I think what's happening now, though, is if you don't follow your boss's rules and regulations, you should either quit or be fired. And that's simply what happened. This is important. We love the CDC's mission, and they need to get back to that mission. And I hope, and the jury's out, I hope that the new director is going to get back to the mission of the CDC.
Yeah, but Theron, there is that concern that with this happening right now, it just really puts the CDC in a state of disarray at a time where we're heading into, say, flu season, other health issues that are really kind of coming up as we head towards the end of the year.
And the image of these employees, these women and men applauding these, I think you're saying 3, I thought it was 4 individuals who are scientists that are actually leaving because of Susan Menarez being fired. And so it gives me a little bit of concern because, yes, I celebrate what they're doing. I mean, they're standing up in a peaceful protest against this secretary's actions around being anti-vaccines. But Deidre, I don't want those scientists not working. They're scientists for a reason. They're here because they're trying to stop deadly pandemics from happening again, deadly diseases, and they are trained experts to work every single day to make sure that this country and this region is safe. But to just go back of just a short tenure, I mean, this was a CDC CDC director that was only just appointed on July 31st, first ever confirmed by the Senate. I think Melita and Phil made that point, but she's had the shortest tenure in CDC history and previously served as the acting director and principal deputy director. The last concern I have, Deidre, is that this new gentleman, and I think you're right, the jury is still out, but he's nowhere as qualified as this woman. And I don't even think he actually has any sort of experience that makes him eligible to be permanent. So I'm just very concerned about how the CDC is treated. But more importantly, we need these scientists, these men and women, to feel supported so they can protect us from all these different things that are a threat to our democracy.
Yeah, Brian?
Well, you're right that she was confirmed back in July. I wasn't sure what Phil was referring to when he said Kamala Harris broke a tie, because this was a Trump appointee.
You're right about that.
Yeah,
right.
she was a Trump appointee, and she's been in for 3 or 4 weeks.
No, we need to correct that.
I think what is of note here is that it was, in fact, a very close vote. Nearly all of the Democrats voted against this woman just in the last month. And now, all of a sudden, her position is sacrosanct. Like, how dare they fire this woman that we just voted against a few weeks ago in mass? That includes John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, I would assume, because it was 47 no votes. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy and irony in here. I'll say this as a warning to my team on this. There is a big vaccine skeptic element in the Republican Party today. We saw a great sorting over the last 5 years of people who have issues about vaccines gravitating toward the Republican Party, many of whom, like RFK, used to be Democrats. This is something that polarized people. People who had a problem went toward the Republicans. But a lot of Republicans think vaccines are great. I use them, my kid uses them, my wife uses them. So there's a lot of Republicans who are pro-vaccine, and we need to make sure that we move carefully and that Americans don't feel like this chaos is impacting their access to vaccines that they believe in and trust.
Yeah. And another national story with local ties, Federal Reserve Board Governor Lisa Cook was fired by the Trump administration earlier this week after she was accused of committing mortgage fraud. Melita, one of the homes is here in Atlanta, and Cook is currently suing Trump for trying to fire her from the board. There was a hearing on Friday.
Well, she not only was, she grew up in Milledgeville, where she desegregated the public schools there back in the early days of desegregation. She attended Spelman, and she was the first Spelman graduate to receive either the Marshall or the Truman Scholarship. She's received both. She's a tough cookie, and I think she and her lawyers are going to make a strong case that it's not the president's prerogative to fire her, and that, you know, there's a reason the Federal Reserve Board of Governors has 14-year terms, because it was set up that way to try and protect the Federal Reserve from being politicized.
The president is accused of politicizing, of doing just that, the board.
Well, I understand that the board is supposed to be independent. However, I think it's pretty serious when she's accused of taking out 3 mortgages. These are serious charges, and I think that at the very least, while this is being adjudicated, she should step down. How can you have somebody that's overseeing this having these serious charges hanging over?
Yeah, real quick, to amplify what Melita just said, let's talk about this Cook family. I mean, for our viewers, I know Melanie Cook, the sister of Lisa Cook, very well. This is their parents, particularly their father, are well-known, respected in Milledgeville. Melita did a fantastic job of telling her how she's earned this. And I want to stress this. This is a woman who earned this position. And most of us, Deidre, we don't really know what a governor of the Federal Reserve Bank is responsible for. But the fact is that I believe that the facts will come out as we're taping. You're right. We're taping on a Friday. The hearing is going on right now, so we'll probably have a different viewpoint on this next week. But I want to thank her, and I think Georgians, for all of us, should celebrate this woman who's one of our Georgia's own, who has aspired and gotten to one of the highest positions one can get within the federal government. Now, whether she was wrongly terminated, she believes she was. Trump said that she does all these things. I think we can't rush to judgment. You haven't heard that in a while. But I want to make sure that people of Georgia know how significant this position is and how extraordinary this woman is.
She has not explained why she took out these 3 mortgages.
Well, the hearing is going on as we tape.
I know.
I think next week, Phil, you and I have a little sip of tequila.
That's a fine biography, but that has nothing to do with the charges.
Well, but I believe that, no, listen to me. It's merit in this country, right? And you guys, Republicans, you always talk about people pulling themselves up by the bootstraps and working for what they got. I just want the public to know, while this woman is being publicly, I think, terminated in a wrongful way, she is a qualified person person that has earned this position.
And we're going to leave it there. Coming up, what 2 big court rulings could mean for Fulton County commissioners and the Board of Elections. We'll be right back.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
On Thursday, a Fulton County judge put a pause on an order that would have fined the county $10,000 a day for failing to appoint 2 Republican members to its elections board. Now, the ruling came one day after the judge initially imposed the steep penalty, which sparked concern from county officials. And Brian, Republicans have argued their nominees have been blocked from taking their seats.
They haven't argued it. It's the fact. It is beyond arguing that they have been blocking them from being on the Board of Elections. The court was very clear that they have a duty to seat these appointees to the commission. The only reason why the fines were rescinded was that the case has been appealed now, and so the county will get its day in court. Their argument was, we don't want to seat them because if we win our appeal, there's no way to get them off. That our remedy won't work. And so let this play out. Well, the county is going to get what it wants. But I think at the end of the day, the Court of Appeals is going to agree with the Fulton County Court that they need to be put on this board. Let's just do it and move on. I think the commission's being needlessly obstinate at this juncture.
Yeah, and they're just not backing down the commission.
Man, they're not. And B-Rob and I were at the AJC this week, and I actually ran into Commissioners Mo Ivory and Commissioner Dana Barrett. And when I talked to them, Deidre, they looked me right in my eyes, and I'm just going to echo what they've been saying publicly, that they believe that they have the right. This is why the constituents voted them, for them to vote in the best interest of their constituents. They truly believe that these 2 people who have been nominated by the Republican Party are election deniers. Therefore, they should not be on the election board. Now, what really happened here, let's just make sure our viewers understand this, Deidre, real quick, and I'll be fast. It was a 2-2 vote. One commissioner was out of the country. I think the other commissioner had an excused medical leave, and another commissioner did not vote. So had the 7 people present, maybe this would have happened what Brian is inferring. But I want to commend Mo and Dana for standing up for what they believe in. And Democrats, we need this type of action to make sure that when people are concerned about us not fighting, this is 2 women who are literally standing on business when it comes to this issue, and I commend them.
Go.
Well, I would condemn them. And the Democrats are always prattling about no one's above the law and all this stuff. And yet they're defying the law. They're defying a court ruling. It's outrageous. It's a waste of time. The taxpayers' money are going to be a hook on this. It's a disgrace. There's 5 for the viewers. There's a Democrat-dominated majority on the Fulton County Commission. There's only 2 Republican commissioners. And so it says that both parties are to pick 2 people on this panel. The Republicans don't care who the Democrats pick. They'll be left-wingers, fine. But who are the Democrats to choose through who the Republicans are? It's absurd.
Melita.
Well, what this boils down to is sort of the issue Phil just talked about. The definition of the word shall in the county charter. Mm-hmm. And it will be up to the court to decide whether the word shall gives the commissioners, as Theron says, leeway to determine the qualifications of the people who shall be appointed. So it's a very legal fine point. I do applaud the court for making it only a civil liability, which is the fine, rather than a criminal liability, which would have put the 2 county commissioners in jail at a time when jail is overcrowded and not a place for county commissioners to be.
And they don't have to do the $10,000 fine as we taped. The judge did push back. It was supposed to go into effect this week. They don't have to pay the fine because Fulton County was going to have to pay that $10,000.
And that's outrageous. They ought to be fined personally.
I'll let you have the final word, Brian.
I'll tell you though, they should get arrested. Getting a Fulton County mugshot carries a lot of cachet these days. You can sell the clothes you're wearing in your mugshot. It's a really good idea. I want to transition from what Melita said to another instance that uses the word shall. One of the Republican appointees sued the board, sued the county, because she thought as a board member, and she's been on the board, she had the right to not vote to certify an election. I disagree with her on this, and I said so on this show. But she lost that case because the judge said, you shall certify. She accepted that ruling and has agreed to comply with it. That is what you're supposed to do when you get a court ruling. You shall comply with the judge's order.
And we'll leave it there and on to the governor's race. Now, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones officially launched his campaign for governor with a rally in Butts County on Tuesday, scoring a legal victory also in court. On Thursday, a judge dismissed a federal lawsuit by his political rival, Attorney General Chris Carr, who was also running for governor. Now, Carr accused Jones of using a leadership committee to bypass campaign finance laws. And Brian, Carr's campaign argued that the move gave Jones an unfair advantage.
Yeah, and I must disclose on the front end that I am an advisor to Chris Carr. And what this case is about is Burt Jones, as Lieutenant Governor, Governor Kemp has one as well, has a leadership committee that allows him to raise money unlimited and even during session, which no other challenger in the race for governor on either side has access to. So the $14 million that Burt Jones has is in an account that plays by a different set of rules than any other candidate. Now, what the judge said is that, yes, this is very unfair, that this does violate the First Amendment rights of the Carr campaign, but the challenge has to be to the law. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the General Assembly to take this up in January, because there will be another court case, whether it's from Chris Carr or someone else. The judge was very clear about the pathway here legally, go after the law itself. The House and Senate caucuses, Republican and Democrat, have leadership committees. And there's broad support, bipartisan, because everybody is on an even playing field. So I think some reforms could allow the House and Senate Republican and Democratic caucuses to continue to have leadership committees. But let's take a look at ones that may give one candidate an advantage over someone else in a competitive primary when you're running for an office that you're not currently holding.
Bill?
Well, I would push back and say that Chris Carr has had a terrible few weeks, and Burt Jones has just had a good time. He had his official kickoff, big crowd. But where Chris Carr and his attorneys were wrong is they didn't go after the law that you're talking about. Yeah, if it's unfair, okay. But these attorneys, it's incredible, just screwed the whole case up. The federal judge just said, you have no standing, you're wasting our time and money and all this. And so, and then Carr was smacked down by the State Ethics Committee not too long ago for wasting their time and money on this. Why don't you define yourself, Chris Carr, as to what you're going to do with your policy issues, and why don't you take a step back, don't go into court anytime lately because you're not doing too well there, and just go after Burt Jones like you should, any candidate should, on the issues.
Right there, and I saw you reacting there.
No, I mean, I think Phil and Brian did a really good job of explaining what's going on here. The only two things I would add is that Chris Carr has got to know now, with these ethics complaint not going through, to Phil's point, and also now the court coming back with their ruling, is he trying to lay down a narrative that Burt Jones is cheating, right? Is he using an unfair advantage? Now, that hasn't been proven through these two acts. But at the same time, I do think that, you know, you're the Attorney General. You got to kind of know the legal process in order to push your case. And so is it emboldening Burt Jones to say, to Phil's point, like, hey, I'm coming out here, I'm kind of Teflon done now. However, Deidre, there's a long way left in this race. And so I think that, you know, Burt did have a really good launch. I think Chris Carr's got to have some more tactics up his sleeve to kind of define himself. Raffensperger gets in this race, then it becomes, okay, what's the lane for all of these three gentlemen? So it's going to be a lot to come with this lawsuit, but also we're waiting to see what Carr and Raffensperger is going to do, because right now Burt Jones is in a lane and he's being forceful. He's landing all on the line. But if he has to, you know, to B-Rob's point, if the legislative session comes back and sort of redefines what you can do with these leadership packs, then does he give the money back, or does he have to, you know, fund it? Like, it's just a whole lot of mess.
And you're referring to Raffensperger, Brad Raffensperger, getting into
getting into the race. Yeah, getting into
viewers.
getting into the governor's race. I think we talked about that last week.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Coming up, an end of an era as the AJC announces it's ending its print paper publication. We'll discuss next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
A special election to fill the Senate District 21 seat vacated by former Alpharetta Republican State Senator Brandon Beach is headed to a runoff. Since no candidate cleared 50% of the vote to win the race outright Tuesday, the top two candidates will face off for a second time on September 23rd. Now, the winning candidate will represent residents in North Fulton and Cherokee counties. And Melita, the Democratic candidate in the race, the only one, made a strong showing there.
She did, and by virtue of my position as executive director of Georgia Win List, I was involved in recruiting Deborah Shigley to run for that office. So there is a little bit of a conflict of interest there that I should disclose. But here are the 40 plus pieces of mail Republican opponents sent to households in that race. Deborah Shigley surprised everyone with her strong showing of 40% in a red district. She outpaced the prior Democratic candidate for that race by 10 points. I think the Republicans have a lot of catching up to do, especially since the person who is most likely headed to that runoff, unless he's challenged, is Jeff Dickerson, the man who loaned his own campaign, Jason Dickerson, who loaned his own campaign $500,000 and only received one contribution of $100 from someone else. He sent more than 20 pieces of mail, so it's going to be a vigorous campaign.
Brian, you agree, disagree?
Well, congratulations to whoever his mail vendor is, because I made a lot of money in the last few weeks.
And all those people sent the mail.
So she got 40%. She was the only Democrat in a big field. 60% went to Republicans. So let me tell you how this runoff is going to go. Deborah Shigley can spend a lot of money, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a 60-40 runoff election. It's going to be a Republican in this seat taking office in January. That's just how this goes. The 10% swing is of concern to me. I'm not going to joke about that, but that's very normal in a special election when one party is in the White House, the other party always has a little more energy. We're seeing that in that number. We're seeing it in other states that are having special elections as well. Republicans need to be on guard for this. I want Republicans to get energized because we have a Public Service Commission race coming up in November. It is hugely important. If you don't want green energy tax mandates coming in, are going to raise your prices. Republicans have got to get engaged and energized.
Okay, the biggest news we got this week, we've got to talk about this with the time we have left. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution ending its print edition December 31st after 157 years, moving fully to digital. Now, Atlanta will be the largest U.S. city without a daily printed newspaper. Declining readership and a shift toward digital news consumption drove the move. And this was one that really got a lot of reaction from people this week.
Well, let me weigh in as a publisher myself.
Who still prints?
Yeah, and it's profitable, and the AJC print operation is still profitable, which confuses me. Why don't you want to at least ride the torpedo to the end, and as long as it's profitable, keep it going? Yes, digital is where the action is. I get that. Sadly, the AJC is probably going to be laying off part-time and full-time 30 journalists, and I hate to see that as a journalist myself and as a news gatherer. I think that it's probably a mistake right now. I know, again, it's going to be over by December 31st, but the digital is not making any money now, according to the publisher. So again, I'm confused as to why they did this.
So I just remember as a young kid growing up in Athens, Deidre, there was nothing like getting up on that Saturday or Sunday morning, if I got up early enough to go to school and go get the paper from my mom. Seriously, this is what I vividly remember. And back then there was no cell phones, so there's no texting, there's no social media driving. So I miss that. I miss the fact that my grandparents used to love to open up that Sunday AJC. However, I think we got to really give Andrew Morris and AJC a little bit more grace here, right? It's clear they went to a digital strategy. That's what they said when they first started. I'm sure this is a very tough decision for them to discontinue the print version. I feel sorry for those folks losing their jobs, but I do think that he understands that this is it. This is the future. People are more on their devices, and I have to say, I picked up a paper for the first time in a long time about a few weeks ago, and I don't usually read the hard paper because I'm on the digital strategy. So, feel for the people losing their jobs. Let's give them a little bit more grace to see how it all works out.
An end of an era. All right, well, coming up, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Melita, we're going to start with you.
Well, I just want to say, as a former reporter for the AJC a long time ago, I'm really sad to see them cease the print operation. But for a long time, they had ceased to live up to the legacy of people like Ralph McGill. There's a great fan of the show who is celebrating a milestone birthday this weekend, retired 11th Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Stanley F. Birch, who watches every Sunday, so I want to wish him a happy birthday. And my loser of the week is the CVS drugstore chain for not offering COVID vaccines in 6 16 states, including Georgia, which greatly interrupts the supply chain and makes all of us vulnerable for not being able to get a vaccine if we want one.
All right, Phil.
Well, I've got a judge too as a winner. It's Superior Court Judge in Fulton County, Craig Schwall. He had what he calls the Schwall Ball last weekend. He raised, according to him, almost $300,000. That's incredible. I mean, he could run statewide or for a federal office. He's a great constitutionalist, a federalist, a longtime friend of mine. So congratulations, Judge. I agree. It's the AJC is a loser. I don't know why they didn't say, as I said earlier on the show, keep that print edition. I love print. I still have a print magazine.
Theron?
Congratulations to Judge Schwall. Phil, I missed you. I got there a little late, but great turnout. Also, Deborah Shigley, I didn't get a chance to speak on that. Congratulations to her for making a runoff. Also, State Representative Tanya Miller announced for Attorney General this week. Congratulations to her and her race. And also, shout out to the people at Hayward Allen Toyota. Steve Middlebrooks, Andrew, Kelvin, Maria, thank you all so much for your help this weekend.
All right, Brian.
My winner is one of the pastors at my church, Peachtree Presbyterian, Chuck Roberts, who retired after more than a quarter century of serving our church and more than 4 decades of serving the Christian faith. So congratulations to him on his retirement. And also to my friend Chris Crawford, Buddy Carter's Chief of Staff, named Best Chief of Staff in the House this year.
All right, have a great week, everyone.